Horses have taken a back burner on the workforce in the last century with the introduction of machines that replaced them. But horses, donkeys, and cattle shouldn't be forgotten about completely for work on the farm just yet. And we're not just talking about people like the Amish who avoid modern machines that need animals to assist with manual labor. The fact of the matter is that not all farms, especially small-scale productions and homesteads, can afford to shell out a few $100,000 for tractors. But animals, they thrive when they're given a job to do. That's what they were bred for after all, and they fertilize and till the ground while they're working. Are horses a little more expensive to keep? Well, it depends on how you go about the matter. Growing their feed will go a long way to slashing your expenses, and if you're caring for them as you should, your veterinary costs go down significantly too. Besides, the more variation you have on the land, animals and plants included, the better your fields will produce. So why don't we look at a few horse breeds that'll do the work for you and be happier animals for it? Here are some of our favorite working breeds to fall in love with, all around the land, the farm, and let's face it, a little bit of obsessive love, because no animal pulls at mankind's heartstrings quite like horses do for equine lovers. We're going to start off with the most expensive and rare working breeds, and work our way down to the more common, affordable, and hardy ones as we go down the list, starting with the mighty and majestic Friesian. Friesians are now mostly confined to showroom, dressage, and film roles. And are we even surprised? Look at these beauties. L'Oreal commercials can do away with their pretty models and hire these flowing-haired equines instead. But all those looks have hiked up the price and made us forget just how incredibly strong they are. Friesians are draft horses through and through. They want to pull something, and denying them the opportunity to do so isn't doing them any favors. Whether it be a cart, a plow, or a wagon, they take to the task with pride and feel a great sense of accomplishment when the job is done. There is no working horse that can compare in strength. Friesians are the gym bros of the farm, pulling more weight than everyone else. Even though they are incredibly hardworking and efficient, Friesians are the lowest ranked on our list simply because of the price and level of care required to keep them. All that hair is going to take up a lot of your time, but trust us, it's worth it. Besides being majestic, it's a great deal of fun to braid and style too. The kids will love it. But that hair is also a clear indicator that they don't do well in heat at all. These are northern hemisphere animals and they suffer in humid and dry climates. Keeping them in the heat will require fans and well-ventilated housing. Then the size is also something to consider. They are huge, weighing in at half a ton and standing well above 6 feet tall. They eat more, and if they aren't put to work enough, then daily exercise is needed or else they become overweight. Fjord. Similarly to the Friesian, the Fjords are very expensive and restricted to northern climates. This Scandinavian breed is very rare, and their breeding is strictly controlled to keep it that way to ensure that they always go for a higher price. And what a shame, these sturdy, smart, and family-friendly steeds would have been our favorite of all the breeds on our list had it not been for their rarity and the price that comes with that exclusivity. They're most closely related to their original wild horse ancestors of all the breeds alive today, meaning that they're shorter in stature and therefore more hardy and manageable. They prefer outside forage. If anything, too much bought for feed will make them gain an unhealthy amount of weight. And don't let those short legs fool you. They're strong enough to carry a Viking, dressed in full battle gear. That's one of the reasons that they came into existence in the first place. The Scandinavians needed a horse that was smart enough to train and keep calm in the middle of war. And when the battle was done, they went back to the farm where they plowed and pulled carts. When the winter came, they lived with the people, chickens and sheep in a single shelter. So they adapted to be docile and friendly toward all humans and animals that they shared spaces with. These are the sweetest, smartest, and most hard-working little horses that a property could wish to have. Only their heat intolerance and weight management needs to be taken into account. The Clydesdale will be our last cold climate breed before we move on to those that have a little more room in the weather department. Clydesdales are comparable to Friesians in almost every way. They're a little more chilled out than Friesians though, so they're easier to handle. If you need a horse that's on the bigger and stronger side, but can't afford the hefty price tag of the Frisian, go for the more affordable and docile Clydesdale instead. The care, infrastructure, and capabilities are very comparable between the two. The Clydesdale just comes with slightly less hair, though still enough to braid and style, and much less stubbornness. Seeing miniature horses might be a bit of a surprise on this list, but hear us out. Miniature horses are not ponies. The two are very distinctly different species, especially in the temperament department. Ponies are mean, spiteful, and spoiled little things, more closely related in temper to geese than they are to equines. Miniature horses are much more sociable and easier to train. They were originally bred to be draft horses in mines because regular-sized horses just couldn't fit in those narrow tunnels. If the cart is appropriate for their size, they can do a remarkable amount of work for less care than the bigger, more finicky horses can. Also, they don't spook easily, and they genuinely enjoy having a goal to work toward, much more than they do just being a pet, as they are almost exclusively used as nowadays. If you only have an acre to work with, and you really don't have the space to keep a fully sized horse, think about getting a miniature. They'll tickle your love for horses and be immensely helpful for half the feed, care, and temper. Percherons are a fairly large breed that originated from France. They don't mind a cold winter, but they're much more at ease in the warm, even Mediterranean summers. They are the helpers of farmers and loggers, and still are to some European small holdings. Besides being very good cart, draft, and even military workers, they're very even-tempered, so perfect for the family farm. They prefer the standard amount of feed and grooming care, so they aren't terribly expensive to maintain. But they absolutely need to be social and working. Percherons just lose their spark if they aren't given enough to do. So if it's not peak working season, they need to go for rides, and sometimes you just need to hook them up to a cart to make them feel like they're doing at least something to give them a sense of accomplishment. For socialization, you don't need to keep a herd of them, but they do need other animal friends in the equine family to be at their most content. The Irish draft horse isn't the absolute biggest draft horse, but it's far from the smallest. But of all the giant draft horses, they are the most versatile of them all. Back in Ireland, they were bred to do plow and carriage pulling work during the week, and on weekends they were saddled up and taken on hunting trips where they were needed to run the buck down with a decent amount of speed, and then they carried the carcass all the way back. Given the wide range of disciplines they can be taught, both on the farm and in the showroom, we'd have placed them higher on the list. They just fall short because they are a little more expensive, and though they aren't exactly rare, it's not like you can find them just anywhere. Their sales are mostly restricted to registered breeders and distinguished lines, so you won't have trouble finding them. Just don't expect them to be the cheapest or the most common horse on the sales floor. The American Quarter Horse is a breed meant for long distances. Ranchers still prefer them above all other breeds for long treks to keep an eye on their moving herds. They can be used as cart horses, but forcing them in draft and plow pulling will push them beyond their limits. The American Quarter wants open spaces and long rides all day, every day. Long-term hunting expeditions and camping trips are ideal for those sure feet and to serve as a pack animal. Keeping them confined to small pens for most of their days just isn't optional. The only time they should be in a stable is for maintenance and rests in between travels. The hoof care is a little more complex than with most other breeds, since they're taking on long endurance rides, and their hooves just take more of a beating than the others do. But they can absolutely be kept on the farm without going out into the plains. The thing about the American Quarter is that it forms a very strong bond with its owner, and it will adapt to the needs and wants of its handler. Of course, they'll be happiest out in the grasslands, but that's not to say it's absolutely necessary. If they can't be taken on 30-mile rides, then at least give them regular exercise and enough work. Or they'll become so depressed that they start developing health problems and even become aggressive due to boredom. The Mustang will be our cheapest and hardiest of the lot. Readily available and perfect for endurance, the Mustang isn't prone to hoof cracking, and they have the valuable asset of being able to feed themselves if there's enough growing for them. Mustangs are smart and can be taught to do everything from riding endurance trails to the complicated art of dressage. They aren't heavy pullers, so not a draft animal, but they do well as pack carriers. Mustangs are not for novices though. These are stubborn horses that need to be challenged physically and mentally. Ranching, hunting, endurance riding, competition training, camping, and mild farm chores suit them best. Their lack of muscle and the amount of time and training that they require from you is their only drawback. For the Southern Plains, however, you can't ask for a better herder. Rocky Mountain Walkers, or Tennessee Walkers, but not to be confused with Tennessee walking horses, are another American breed that's just performed outstandingly since they were developed in the Appalachian Mountains. This is the closest you're going to get to a donkey from a horse breed, without actually being a donkey. These sturdy and furry little steeds are the most sure-footed of all of the breeds on our list. Hilly, rocky, and uneven terrains don't bother them at all. Actually, not a lot bothers them, come to think of it. Hail, snow, rain, and heat. They can tolerate everything, and they're called walkers for a reason. These babies can walk and walk and walk and never tire. But they only walk. There's no speed for the walkers. But there doesn't need to be. They're a working horse, not a racehorse after all. Walkers love people, and they're perfectly content with just their human owner for company. They can plow the field, pull the buggy, serve as a pack animal, and as a guardian companion for your other livestock. Like donkeys, they're willing to kick mountain lions to death if they or their companions are threatened. It's a little alarming to see this mild-mannered love bundle turn into a killing machine when a predator comes close. They'll do all of the work and protection for you, for as little care as possible for an equine. The only real worry with this breed is their habit of gaining weight. They do well on just about any feed, but only if they can work as much as they need to. It was a close tie for first place between the Rocky Mountain Walkers and the Halflingers. Halflingers just have a wider range of capabilities than the Walkers do, so they beat out the stout champ from the Appalachians by a main hair. They're readily available, so unless you really want one from a specific breeding line, you won't be paying more than average for it. They're strong enough to be very effective draft horses, yet not so big that you can't ride them comfortably. And when they are ridden for long stretches, they are some of the most accomplished endurance horses out there. This is unusual for such a large-bodied horse, because the bigger the body, the more they're suited to short bursts of strength and not for the long haul. Larger bodies also indicate heat intolerance, but not for the Halflinger. The high heat of the desert will require that they have access to cool water and the proper shade, and you might have to time their exercise and working hours, but really, that's true of any working animal. Then there's the intelligence. They're smart enough to be trained for anything: showrooms, dressage, war zones, farm chores, you name it. It's not often that an equine this intelligent isn't too stubborn to train for new horse owners. But the Halflinger is nothing if not adaptable and willing to follow your lead. If there's a treat and a cuddle for work well done, they're more than willing to please. Yes, they require a strong hand to guide them, but they aren't nearly as willful as the Mustang, nor as arrogant as the Frisian. Then we'd like to end off with this note. Working animals are necessary, and they will forever be, besides being cheaper and more environmentally friendly than the machines are. And if you play your cards right, they can become a good side hustle for you off the field too. The manure will always sell out fast, and there will never be a shortage of weddings that will pay for a grand horse-drawn entrance and a few good photos. Every country on the planet still has working animals, and why do you think that is? It's because they get so much more done, all while being a genuinely enjoyable part of farm life. It's hard not to get attached to your steed, as any equine lover will tell you. Or maybe you already have working horses on your property. If that's the case, please let us know what your takeaways and experiences have been like so far in the comments below. If there's one thing that this community does well, it's sharing their adventures and advice with each other. And while you're typing away, leave us a like and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.